Jasodanandana Brajacanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajacanaranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajacanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajacanaranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Yamuna Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Astatarasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Granth Karaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya She just wants a book, huh?
Yeah, she always wants a Krishna book.
Okay. Well, there's a work in progress of creating Srimad Bhagavatam for children. Different, children's style of illustration and children's style language. And I don't know what stage of production is it? Do you know? Yeah.
They already are. Third, my first chapter, one book is there.
You have?
Yeah.
Oh,
He has been attending the classes with Kavita.
And what about your daughter there? She read this? Too young.
Then sees the pictures in the
She looks at the pictures. Okay. So the occasion is installing Srimad Bhagavatam, welcoming Srimad Bhagavatam formally. I thought it'd be nice to give a little background on how Srimad Bhagavatam appeared in this world. That's nice topic. Just like we observe on Krishna Janmastami, the appearance of Krishna, or Ram Navami, we observe the appearance of Lord Ramachandra, or Nrsimha Chaturdasi, we observe the appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev. So how about this? Srimad Bhagavatam is said to be, according to the Padma Purana, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary form of the personality of Godhead, particularly the literary form of Krishna, because the other forms of personality of Godhead are expansions of Krishna, as it's described in the Bhagavatam. So in the first 3 chapters, I'm going to read a verse from chapter 5. And it responds to this, how Srimad Bhagavatam manifested in this world. The first 3 chapters have 2 sections. One is, there's a gathering of sages at the beginning of the age of Kali. Kali Yuga had already begun, just begun, and the sages, they knew what that meant. Bad. Manda, Sumanda, Matayo, Manda Bhagya, Upadrata. Very bad situation for the people of this age of Kali. Knowing that it was beginning, being compassionate, they wanted to do something to help the people of this age of Kali. So they decided to go to Naimisharanya. Have you been to Naimisharanya? It's a nice place. It's not far from Lucknow, in UP. It's where the sages gathered to conduct a yajna for 1,000 years. You know, one yajna after the next, yajna after the next. Continuous yajnas for 1,000 years. To diminish the negative influences of the age of Kali. In their midst, as they had assembled at Naimisharanya, they detected a great personality amongst them named Sutta. He had heard Srimad Bhagavatam spoken for the first time, spoken by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit near Hastinapur. So they asked Sutta Goswami 6 questions. And that was first chapter. And then chapter 2 and 3 is his answer to those 6 questions. And one of the 6 questions was, during Krishna's presence, Krishna has gone. And that's marked the beginning of the age of Kali, when Krishna departs. When Krishna was present during Dwapara Yuga, just by his presence, the whole of the earth was blessed and sanctified, and bountiful production, and everything was, religious principles were protected, everything was nice. But now Krishna is gone. So where shall religious principles take shelter now, in this age of Kali? That was one of their questions. And at the end of chapter 3, the answer is given that just shortly after Krishna's departure, which was like the setting of the sun on the western horizon, shortly thereafter on the eastern horizon arose this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is moon-like in its soothingness, but brilliant like the sun, thus dispelling the darkness of this age of Kali. So that's where chapter 3 ends. And chapter 4 begins by the sages then asking Sutta, could you describe how Srimad Bhagavatam first manifested in this world? Because it's a transcendental form of the Lord, literary form. So the chapter 4 begins with an explanation of Vyasadeva. He also, because he's Trikalagya, he could see past, present, future perfectly. He looked into the future, and what he saw was not very nice. It was the age of Kali and all of its qualities. So he also wanted to do something, knowing what the age would be like. And one of the weaknesses of the age of Kali is people's mind and memory would become very dull. Previously, people had very good memory, but in the age of Kali, their memory would be very dull. And so they won't be able to remember the Vedas, so he decided to write them down. So he took that which was through sound and put it in writing for the first time. Or at least in each age of Kali, there's someone that does that. So our Vyasadeva did that. And after he compiled, they took the one Veda, divided it into 4. He then wrote the Smritis that explain the Shrutis. He wrote the Upanishads. He wrote the Vedanta Sutra that summarizes everything. And the Itihasas. And the Puranas. And then he stepped back to see how did it come out. And as he was doing that, he felt some incompleteness, a kind of despondency within himself. He was very surprised. And as he was puzzling within himself, why am I feeling this feeling? Chapter 5 begins, which is what we're going to read from, where Narada appeared at his ashram. Narada appeared at Vyasadeva's ashram, and they had some exchange over. Vyasa asked him, why am I feeling like this? And Narada explained, well, your compiling of the Vedas is not in error, but what you've done is you've given inordinate emphasis to fruitive activities. Per the codes of the Vedas, there's a very vast section of the Vedas known as Karma Kanda, which means there's sacrifices offered to various devas or demigods, where someone who desires this, they can worship this demigod. Someone desires that, they can worship that demigod. Someone desires something else, they can worship some other demigod. And those rituals performed by priests in a certain manner, in a certain procedure, and everything. You've explained that abundantly. However, people already have material tendencies, and you've simply encouraged it. Instead of encouraging detachment, and beyond detachment is attachment to the Supreme. You're feeling this feeling because you haven't sufficiently glorified the personality of Godhead. That was the reason. So then he suggested 2 things. You sit in trance, in complete absorption on the absolute truth, and that you get some realization. And when you get that realization, that can be your next composition. And that's the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in the course of describing what Vyasadeva was to do, there's this nice verse, which I'm going to read. It's Canto 1, Chapter 5, text number 11. And it's such an important verse that in the preface for every one of these volumes, this verse is quoted by Srila Prabhupada, describing the composition itself. So we're looking for 1:5:11. There it is. It's a celebrated verse. I know the verse without even reading it. It goes like this. Tadvag Visargo Janata Agha Viplavo. Janata Agha means sinful people. Viplava means kaboom. This literature causes a revolution in the Janata Agha, the impious people of this world. Vag comes from the dhatu vak. Vak, words, that which is spoken or that which is written. Tadvag Visarga. Visarga means creation. So that literature that's created, that's going to be effective for bringing in a revolution in the impious lives of people of this age of Kali. Yasmin prati shlokam abhadyavatsapi, even if it's irregularly composed. So in other words, rules of grammar and rules of alankara and rules of so many different rules. There may be discrepancies in the composition, but because it's about the personality of Godhead, beginning with the name Namanyantasya Yashon Kataniyat Shrinvanti Gayanti Grananti Sadavaha. Shrinvanti, heard. Gayanti, spoken. Grananti, received in the heart. Shrinvanti Gayanti Grananti Sadavaha. Those who are sadhus, those who are pure in heart, who are perfectly honest, they're very, very happy overlooking whatever literary discrepancies there may be, because the substance is the essence. The substance of words that are glorifying Vak, that's glorifying the personality of Godhead. That's what's going to create a revolution in the impious lives of people in general. Here's the translation. That literature, which is full of the descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation meaning compared to the other kinds of literature that's available. It's the previous verse calls it, it's like unto a pilgrimage of the crows. Pilgrimage of the crows meaning like newspaper and other discardable literature. After people look it over, they toss it in the garbage and the crows go to the garbage. It's a place of pilgrimage for the crows. It's garbagey material. But the transcendental literature is for the swans. It's a different creation full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. I'll read just the first part. There's a long paragraph. The purport is one very long paragraph. But Prabhupada is speaking about the swan-like literature. It is a qualification of the great thinkers to pick up even the best from the worst. It is said that an intelligent man should pick up nectar from a stock of poison, should accept gold even from a filthy place, and should accept a good and qualified wife, even from an obscure family, and should accept a good lesson, even from a man or a teacher who comes from the untouchables. These are some of the ethical instructions for everyone in every place without exception. That's a Chanakya Pandit Niti Shastra statement. There's Sanskrit that goes with it. Prabhupada would often quote the Sanskrit. So it's not that the Bhagavatam is filled with mistakes, but Narada is saying, don't worry about the polish of the literary ornaments and all of the technical rules for composition. They're nice, but that's not the essence. The essence is the essence. And the essence is the glorification of the Supreme Lord, because that sound vibration, even if there's some flaw in its composition, it's meant for, and it will bring about, specifically for this age of Kali, in other words, literature that brings a revolution in the impious lives of people. Now, impious lives of people, we were discussing a little bit this morning, the Bhagavatam class. This is the age of Kali. In the age of Kali, the quality of everything goes down. Quality of the air goes down. The quality of the water goes down. The quality of patience, tolerance, simplicity, compassion, charity, the quality of intelligence, memory, everything goes down. And the down becomes the norm. So the piety, for example, the piety that we find in Lord Ramachandra, and the standards that he observed, it's like you don't find that anywhere in the world today. Nothing like it. Or even in this Kali, the Yuga just before this one, in Yudhishthira's character, so noble, so perfect, and so forth. The deterioration of quality becomes the norm, and we start to accept it because that's the norm. I'll give a little example. I learned this from some devotees that served Prabhupada. He was very particular about cleanliness. Particularly cleanliness in the kitchen, but cleanliness, period. And it wasn't like a fanatic or some phobic about germs or something. He just had a very high standard of cleanliness. And Western persons that tried to be his servant, they couldn't maintain the standard that Prabhupada wanted. But he wasn't compromised. It wasn't because, well, they're Western people. If the understanding is those that were around Prabhupada learned what cleanliness really is. And as difficult it was to maintain the standard that Prabhupada was expecting, it was a different standard than most people think what cleanliness is. And that's just one. Cleanliness is next to godliness. So, but he was a godly person. So very clean. Very clean. Very clean. And so forth. Truthfulness, simplicity, tolerance, all good Vaishnava qualities. They have deteriorated in this age of Kali. So how to revive that? And that deterioration antidote is the Bhagavatam. Because there's another nice verse in the Bhagavatam. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana vair ganais tatra sama sute sura haraba bhakta shikuto mahadguna. The verse is saying mahadguna, the good qualities of the suras, of the demigods, become manifest in the person who becomes a devotee. And those that don't become devotees, whatever they may manifest, it's now you see it, now you don't. It's not substantial, and it's very much diminished. Spiritual life requires purity, and the purification that's required for understanding God, say it negatively, one who doesn't have purity isn't going to be able to understand God. They may have some faith in God, but to understand God is another thing. That purity is required, and the purity is accomplished through Srimad Bhagavatam. It's nice to see that your daughter likes reading, or likes looking at the books and pictures, at least, of the Bhagavatam. That's really fantastic quality. So you have a jewel in your family, and taking the opportunity to share these spiritual teachings when someone is that young, fantastic, fantastic. So, if you become a little more familiar with Srimad Bhagavatam, and you teach your children the lessons from the Bhagavatam, along with the nice stories that are within the Bhagavatam, I mean, that's parenting. Just yesterday evening, Wednesday evening, was Thursday morning in China, and that's what I did, because the Chinese devotees don't know the Bhagavatam. So I took a story from the Bhagavatam, the Shamathaka jewel story. King Satrajit worshipped the sun god. The sun god came before him after some time and gave him the Shamathaka jewel that glowed like the sun and produced gold, and the whole story. And there's some lessons of life within that story. And, they learned, it's like children. They're adults, but they don't know these spiritual messages and lessons. But they have their own way of understanding what good behavior and so forth is. But to connect all that to the personality of Godhead, that's spiritual life. And that will support those good qualities in those devotees and your children and whoever you come in contact with. It's what the human form of life is meant for. And if you can pass that on to your children, that's real parenting, along with everything else that goes along with the physical and emotional needs. But the spiritual needs are hard to accomplish unless you have it. So that means you're doing the right thing. To take Srimad Bhagavatam and take it seriously, go through it. However you do that, with study groups or read on your own, or however you do it. Spiritualize your existence and pass that on to your children and whoever else you come in contact with in the course of your lives. You're on the right track. So, those are just some simple thoughts on how Srimad Bhagavatam made its appearance. It's composed by Vyasadeva at the stage of mature realization, according to Narada's instructions. What he realized in trance is the Srimad Bhagavatam. He composed it. Very, very detailed, 18,000 verses. With wisdom, fantastic stories, understanding of the structure of the universe, and understanding of good character and good government, and stages of meditation, and when the matured stage of meditation looks like. It's so much wisdom. I'm very happy to be with you and welcoming Srimad Bhagavatam in your home, although apparently you've had for some time already, but in a formal way accepting Krishna's presence. So let's see if there's some discussion.
I was thinking if you could encourage everyone to distribute a set for the Bhadra Purnima coming in September.
In the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, towards the end of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a glory of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's many, but one of them is a description spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, saying that this Srimad Bhagavatam is so glorious that if the Srimad Bhagavatam is given as a gift to someone on the Bhadra Purnima commonly comes September, October. Bhadra Purnima, just before the month of Kartik, I believe. That month before Kartik month. If on the full moon day of that Bhadra Purnima, someone gives as a gift the Srimad Bhagavatam to another person on a golden throne, a golden throne, a little, table with some gold paint or something, gold cloth, then that person is so auspicious, the book is so auspicious, that that person will surely return to the spiritual world. That's pretty good, huh? Now, because it takes more than that to go back to Godhead, but it's given that special honor. It's such an important book on an important holy day. So, throughout ISKCON, all over the world, it's a target to encourage people to consider that benediction, receiving the benediction, making a gift to your parents or friends or whoever or anybody, to a library or something, a gift of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because of the auspiciousness of it. So he's asking me to speak something, so I did.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. First of all, we really don't have words to express. Like today, we are very happy having you in our home and getting. We are inviting Srimad Bhagavatam through your hands. So first, my question is, what are the different ways of worshipping Srimad Bhagavatam other than reading it daily? So is that the only way, or we can do it in different ways? But the different ways of worshipping?
Well, there's different activities or principles that you can observe. There are, for example, there are standard prayers that can be recited before reading Srimad Bhagavatam. They're in the beginning, in the first chapter. You'll find them as you go along. Some devotees like particular verses that glorify the Bhagavatam, even they're from other places than the Bhagavatam. But in other words, you offer respect to the book, because the book is not different than the person. You offer respect to the speaker, Shukadeva, the author, Vyasadeva. So those are, it's from, that helps one get benefit. Hearing in the association of others is ideal. because these topics are meant to be heard that way and discussed. It's like a gulab jamun. Gulab jamun, you chew and the juice comes out. So Bhagavatam is like that, or like sandalwood. You rub it and the fragrance comes out. So it's meant to be discussed in the association of devotees. That's ideal. And then another that will help you retain the message is you share with someone or others what you've heard and understood and appreciated. Just sharing. I read this was really nice. And then another is how you can apply something that you heard and understood. Those are some points in studying Srimad Bhagavatam regularly that can enhance your experience reading it. But even if it's without all of those things, the nature of Srimad Bhagavatam is so wonderful, it's life transforming. For sure.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Why do Krishna doesn't have a beginning and ending?
Why did Krishna do what?
Have a beginning and ending.
Not have a beginning and
Not have?
beginning and an ending.
Why does Krishna not have a beginning and an ending? Do you think he should? No? Well, why doesn't the soul have the body has a beginning and end, but the soul does not. And Krishna has no material body, so he has no beginning and end, just like the soul has no beginning and end. But we have a body that covers the soul. Krishna doesn't have a body that covers his soul. He's eternal. So why he has no beginning and end? Because he has no material body. He has a spiritual form, but no material form, therefore no beginning and end. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have another question actually. So my question is basically on the Krishna. So we have so many yugas, but we know Krishna is from Dwapara Yuga. But do we have Krishna conscious or spiritual conscious in the other yugas also, or only why Krishna is, or why we are praying Krishna from Dwapara Yuga?
Well, how is Krishna worshipped in other yugas besides our present one?
Yes.
Your question?
Yes, Prabhu.
Well, there's different ways of answering that. The personality of Godhead appears in every yuga, minimally as Yuga Avatar. So within each age, there's a particular most beneficial process for spiritual elevation. And the form of the Lord that delivers that is called the Yuga Avatar. So minimally, there's so many forms of the Lord besides Krishna that the form of Krishna appears only once in a day of Brahma. And that means there's 999 other Dwapara Yugas. So some form of the Lord appears, and people worship that form of the Lord in previous yugas as well. So they have an attraction, not just for the Lord for that particular yuga in which they're living, but forms of the Lord, they're all attractive. Like, for example, Lord Nrsingadev appeared in Satya Yuga, but I know many people, they're Nrsinga Bhaktas. It's not Satya Yuga, but they're very attracted to the form of Lord Nrsingadev. And since Krishna appears only once in a day of Brahma, what about before Krishna appeared in Vivasvata Manu? So they knew of Krishna through scripture. They were Krishna worshippers before Krishna appeared, not only after Krishna departed, because he's an eternal form of the Lord that's known of through the scripture. So it depends on the individual, and what at different times, different forms of the Lord become more prominent or more appreciated, etc. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
But forms of the Lord, forms of Vishnu, are very common. Vaishnava worship is since time immemorial. Okay. Let's see if we have some online questions. Little.
This question is from Sumangala Mataji. She is quoting a verse from 4th Canto, chapter 14, verse 45. Brahmanas are called Shukla or white. Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are a mixture of black and white. However, those who are extraordinary white are said to have skin produced out of white leprosy. It may be concluded that white or golden hue is the color of the higher caste, and black is the complexion of the Shudras. So the question is, why there is Varnasrama based on color discrimination?
There's not Varnashram based on color discrimination. One can be of any color. What may be common is one thing, but the quality, the adhikar, the qualification for each of the 4 varnas and 4 ashrams has to do with guna and karma, not color. If there's from this verse that she's quoting, if there's some tendency, then there's tendency, but it's not a qualification. You can't be a Brahmin unless there's a certain color, and you can't be a Kshatriya unless you're a certain color. It's not the right understanding.
Sanchari has questions from morning class. 2 questions from this morning class on the topic of greed. I have heard often that one should be greedy for mercy, and I'm trying to understand what that looks like, especially as greed has a negative connotation. What is the difference between enthusiasm and greed in spiritual life, and how does greed manifest in spiritual life?
Well, those are 6 questions in one. Enthusiasm magnified and intensified is what greed is. It's, not exactly an obsession, but a very strong, matured, sustained enthusiasm. And enthusiasm for something spiritual is not the same as enthusiasm or greed for something material. Something material, greed, is my sense enjoyment or my private personal enjoyment. And spiritual is that Krishna should be pleased. And there's an unstoppable eagerness, that's the greed, that Krishna should be pleased. And there's the different rasas or mellows of love for Krishna are like that. They're strongly enthusiastic for pleasing Krishna. So that's what it looks like. If you want, if you want more details of what it looked like, take a look at You read Krishna book, and you'll find out what Krishna does in Vrindavan, and the eagerness of his associates show us what greed really is, spiritual, the proper kind. That's it. Okay. You have anything?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, as in 15th chapter, he says that one can have remembrance or forgetfulness is due to by his mercy. So how do I interpret that if something even as a practicing devotee, if something happens, is it due to the gunas, or how do I interpret it in Krishna? What does exactly he means to say that?
Your question is confusing me. There's remembrance and forgetfulness, that's one topic, and there's things that happen, and that's a different topic. So which do you want to know, about things that happen or your remembrance and forgetfulness?
I want to know, the first question is the remembrance and forgetfulness.
It comes from Super Soul. That's 15:15 Bhagavad Gita. So does that answer your first question? Super Soul is the source of remembrance or forgetfulness. And then comes activities, the things that happen in our lives. And your question in relation to that is what? Why?
Mm-hmm. How do I understand?
How you understand it with your intelligence. But I'm not sure what you mean, how you understand it. The events happen, that's a consequence of our previous free will choices. Previous free will choices can be understood, or free will choices can be understood in terms of the modes of nature and the activities that we do. Guna and karma determines things that happen. Today is the past guna and karma that I involve myself with material nature. That's determining the events that's happening today. Guna and karma determined.
So, and on the second topic, like the modes of nature, so on the practicing devotees, how these will play, because the mind, as you said, it's very difficult to focus.
How they will play depends on how fixed your consciousness is. They'll completely rule, or partially rule, or not rule at all, depending on how fixed your consciousness is. In the beginning, we're not so fixed in consciousness. And so we're very much influenced by guna and karma, or completely influenced by guna and karma. So devotion, the life of devotion, is to gradually become reduced in that influence and the strength of clarity of consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, or being fixed, immersed in the mode of serving Krishna at every moment, in all the aspects of our life. The cooking and cleaning and bathing and going to school and going to the office and going to the marketplace and all the things that we do, they can be done without remembrance of Krishna or in remembrance of Krishna. And to the degree they're done in remembrance of and the mode of service to Krishna, then guna and karma compelling forces diminish and become negligible. That's the stage of liberation. And it's proportionate to our spiritual maturity and our steadiness. Okay, we're going to have a little arti for the Bhagavatam set just now.
विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने।
Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine.
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी आर्यजानिशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद।
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda।
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare।
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare।
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada,
Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada.
Jai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol.
Hare Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Hari Bol.
Gaur Premanandi. Naya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parividagacharya Astatara Satsasi Srimad Divine Precious Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki Gaur Premanandi.